Welcome, everybody, to the long-awaited Blue Jay Center podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. I'm James Price, along with Rob Pentillam on Cole Whiston. Fellas, we'll get into this all real quick time because since we last talked, there has been a lot going on. And you know what? All positive. Can't wait to get into it with you guys right now. Let's go.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Last time we talked to everybody, Rob and I were tickled pink. They had just swept the Padres. We're feeling great vibes all around. And we talked about the Rays series. Got to do this, got to do that. Well, they got their teeth kicked in down at Steinbrenner Field and then proceeded to just flip a switch. And the season has changed. And the Blue Jays, all of a sudden, are 8 games over 500. They are 12-3 in their last 15 games. They have the third best record in the American League. And they're second place in the AL East. Fellas, how are we doing? It's great.
Man, I mean, it's...
Oh, get up. You can't come in like that after what you just said. So I will take it from here, you coward.
Red Bull.
Yeah. I'm so jacked. I'm telling you, this team might be the best team we've seen at minimum since 2021 and maybe even 2015. And I'll get into that later. But my point is, this team hasn't been fun to watch in what feels like 3 years.
Yeah.
And finally, and it doesn't have to involve Vladimir Guerrero Jr. somehow, this team is fun to watch. And that is all we care about. And, I mean, the next prompt that's going to come up on the lower third here is we didn't know if the Jays were good going into the year. Are they good now? They actually might be good. At the very minimum, there is a pathway to them being legitimately good.
100%. That point you mentioned, is this the best team we've had since 2021? I disagree. I think both the 2022 team and the 23 team, while they were I think both of them were more talented. I think they were better overall rosters. I would agree with your last point. I think this has been the most fun team. And I guess sort of the reason why, what's the case? Isn't the whole point of watching as a fan to win? Yes, that's true. I mean, winning does help. But ultimately, I think it's the expectation of it all that's really geared us in. You know, you have a team coming in that didn't really have the best vibes coming into the year, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And obviously, you end up getting the Vlad extension done. That sort of helped a bit. But for the most part, the Blue Jays were not a favorite to make the playoffs. I think their playoff odds coming to the year were less than a coin flip. And now all of a sudden, being an 8-game over 500, beating good teams, being like 7-1, 12-2 over the last 14. That, by the way, that last point, 12-2, that's the best they've been since 2021. They have never did that at any point the last 2 years, or 3 years, my bad. But yes, I think it's just how fun they are to watch and just finally hitting. They're 8th in baseball in OPS, not 8th in baseball since May 1st, not 8th in baseball in the last 2 weeks. Since the start of the year, overall, they have been legitimately a top 10 offense per at bats. The pitching, the bullpen has gotten a lot better. And even the question marks on this team, it just feels as though the question marks can be alleviated a lot more than, say, the concerns are fluky. You know what I mean? Like the Bowden Francis of it all. Eventually it's going to be reinforcements. We'll talk about that as we go through the pod. But it just feels like this is somewhat sustainable. I think, to me, what's going under the radar, listening to the radio, listening to all these Jays takes, is that this is the hard part of the schedule. You know, like they're doing this against the Cardinals playoff team, the Twins playoff team, the Phillies, who we saw last week. We'll see them again, playoff team. There's still a bunch of White Sox games. There's still a bunch of Orioles games. Who knows? Yeah, who knows when they'll probably be sellers when we play them next time. The Rockies, the Marlins, the Pirates. So I think the best part of it is that they've done this against legitimate competition. It's not been all Oakland A's. It's been against legitimate playoff teams, and they have looked fantastic. They've hit fantastic, and just overall, the vibes around this team are as good as I've seen since 2021. I mean, like I said, maybe the team's not as good, but in terms of the vibes and the fan base and how fun it is to watch, absolutely. It's just been a hell of a ride these last few weeks.
I got something quick, James.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm just going to list off, because we mentioned a couple stats. I'm going to list off some other ones for you. second most comeback wins in the league behind only the Los Angeles Dodgers, ninth best record in the entire league, fourth in batting average, 15th in home runs, which if everybody remembers who was watching this podcast, a month ago, they were dead last in home runs. So 15th is a very drastic improvement. Ninth in OBP percentage, ninth in hard hit percentage, sixth in expected weighted OBA, seventh in expected slugging. This is what this team has been, and it all feels like it happened, like James said, in the blink of an eye out west when we went up to Seattle.
It was crazy. Absolutely crazy, fellas. Now, Rob, you mentioned the schedule being real tough. The light schedule that you guys mentioned, beginning of July, starting July 4th, you have the Angels for 3 at Rogers Center. You have the White Sox for 3. You have the A's for 3, back to back to back. That's getting close to the All-Star break and trade deadline, all that stuff. That's going to be some fun. And there's also another 3 White Sox games coming up sooner than that. So very excited. You mentioned Vlad.
Yeah.
And this is why this stretch is so impressive.
Yep.
Watching Vlad be a worm killer this entire time. Oh, people go, well, he had 2 hits yesterday. Yeah, great. Couple singles. Nice. Like, okay, fine. Like, great. He's got a total of how many extra base? 20 extra base. 20 of his 70 hits this year have been for extra bases. He's got 8 homers. George Springer's got more homers than him. Like, he has not been very good. I get it. He's got an over 800 OPS. And if you look at everybody else in the league, blah, 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 OPS plus, all that stuff. God damn it, you pay this guy $500 million and 801 OPS. Ain't good enough. Let's be honest here.
Yep.
You're watching Anthony Santander be on the IL with a 577 OPS when he has played.
Yep.
And you've watched Dalton Varsho, who's been great when he's been on the field, but he hasn't been on the field in 2 weeks. Yeah, the Jays just keep finding ways to win. And it's not these scrappy 2-1 greasy wins that we saw last year. They're beating the crap out of pitchers. They're beating good pitchers. Now, this upcoming series, that's going to show us a lot against some really good pitching. But regardless of that, they've done an outstanding job, top to bottom, from the George Springers and the Bo Bichette's to the Tyler Heinemans and the Miles Straws. They're out there doing their job. They know their role. They're performing their role, and it's just nice to see. And you heard Ernie Clement talk about it, at the end of, I think it was the last game yesterday. It's like the most fun ball they've played in 2 years, and of course it is. Winning is fun. Offense is fun. Yeah. And it's so fun to watch. And Cole, your guy, Andres Jimenez, comes off the IL, immedially starts hitting again. So it's contagious. Yeah. It really is contagious.
And here's the thing, you look up the second most comeback wins, you're like, oh, okay, so there's probably some luck involved there, and there is. I'm not going to argue that there isn't, but the last series is probably the most important key to these comeback wins. It's not just you start the game, you get punched in the mouth, and you find a way to come back and you win. The Jays have started games with the lead, got punched in the mouth, and then answered immediately. That specific part of this Jays team hasn't existed since 2021. Right. If we got punched in the mouth, that was it. The game was over. It didn't matter what the score was at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, like, the biggest moment of revelation actually happened this past weekend in that Minnesota series, because I think they had just won. So they swept Oakland, and then they won 2 out of 3 against Philly. At that point, the vibes were already great then. But I'm watching that game Friday night against Minnesota. Eric Lauer is pitching. Obviously it's the bullpen day against Bailey Ober, a guy who's, I don't know the numbers, but he's been pitching very well against the Jays.
He's legit.
Last few years, right? They're down 3-0, and I'm like, okay, you know what? They had won a bunch in a row. You're allowed to have a stinker. It's all good. Come back and they win that game. Saturday comes around, and Kevin Gausman against the Twins, and we all know his history against the Twins. He starts losing it a bit in that inning. The wheels start kind of falling off a bit. They're down against a good Twins bullpen. I'm like, okay, you know what? You're allowed to lose. It's all good. Yeah. Come back and they win that one too. And then obviously they lose Sunday because out in France, you're going to lose every game that he starts, to be honest. And then Monday, you have that lead against St. Louis. Get punched in the mouth. Absolute gut punch. Like you mentioned, Pricey, like you mentioned that chat. Absolute gut punch at home run. I can't remember who it was. The catcher for the Cardinals.
Herrera? Was it Herrera?
Yeah, it was Herrera.
Yeah. Ivan Herrera. Yeah. Home runs off Yariel Rodriguez, and it's like, the Jays have been so good. They're allowed to lose a game, but it sucks. Come back, Jonathan Clase, probably the least likely guy to hit a home run off Ryan Elsley. Let's be honest. Yeah. He does it in the bottom of the ninth, that would be the top of the ninth, and then they ended up winning in the 10th. To me, that's just the thing. You're winning games that you're not expecting to win. Because we've seen this iteration of the Blue Jays the last few years. These are just not games they win. And obviously, these are, when you're down big against good teams, not down big, but down late against good teams, you're probably going to lose that game. I don't care who you are. But the fact that they're winning multiple of these games and it's not fluky, it's not coincidental, it's not a miracle if it happens this many times. That's how you know that this team might be legit, man. I might be getting there.
Also, it helps when you've got a guy playing third base that you feel should be hitting in the middle of your lineup every day. Now, we're seeing some holes start to, show up a little bit. The off speed down, he starts swinging out his rear end, which is fine. Again, I'm totally fine with this.
Yep,
exactly.
Yeah,
and it's Addison Barger, obviously, Rob. I mentioned Vladdy hitting 8 homers. I mean, we all know Barger's played a lot less games than Vlad.
Yeah,
he's got one less homer. One. So he's been outstanding. I love watching him swing. He just doesn't give a rat's ass what count it is, what the score is. That bucket's coming flying off, and I love it. I love it. The max effort, and of course, let's be honest, boys. I haven't seen an arm like that at third base since Donaldson, and it is so nice to see.
And I think he throws harder than Donaldson.
Oh yeah, I would assume so, but an arm like that,
I would bet on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We mentioned we're getting it from all parts of the field.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a common theme on this podcast. If you've been watching, we go through who the best players are in terms of WAR on Baseball Reference, and it's changed drastically, obviously, early in the season. This is what it is right now. Here's our best players. Ernie Clement is the best player on the team in WAR for Baseball Reference, 1.9. Then Vlad at 1.8. Then Barrios at 1.8. We'll get into him later. Tyler Heineman, 1.5 is 0.1 higher than Kirk, who is right behind him. And then Barger, 1.3, which as we mentioned, he has the least amount of plate appearances amongst all of those guys. Well, maybe not Tyler Heineman. He probably is more than Tyler Heineman. But
a 1.5 from your backup catcher in June is insane.
Insane. Yeah. So I just want to say, that's the thing. I know Vladdy was second there, and I know James already kind of touched on how disappointing he's been. Vladdy should never be second on this team. That's James's point. He's a $500 million player. He should be first, and it should be unquestionably first every single time we look at that sheet. So that's the problem. But regardless, the point is we mentioned the Vladdy, we mentioned the Santander, we mentioned the Varsho. Those are all expected outcomes. Yes, Barger might not be what Barger is right now the rest of the season. Yes, Heineman, in all likelihood, won't be what he's been the rest of the season. Yes, Clement's going to have his peaks.
30? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Clement's going to have his peaks in his valleys. But Vladdy and Santander and Varsho are just guys that you have to expect to get back to their career averages in terms of forms. And that's what this team will need to become a legit contender. And if that does happen, then that's the pathway that all three of us have talked about so far and alluded to, is that's the pathway to a legit team, besides just the fact that, yes, we need to solidify the pitching staff. But if those three guys, just those three guys, can get back to their career norms, this team can be looked at as legit.
I mean, you bring it all back. Sorry, Rob, just jump in real quick. You bring that figure it out. If you get Vlad back to what let's be honest, what we all know he can be. And this is the scary part. We talked about it last year in the second half. Okay, I mean, you're 10, 15, 20 games under 500. I mean, it's great to see this, but do when it matters, and it matters now. We're not seeing it. It's okay. I'm not thinking too much about that, but I do want to bring it up. Anthony Santander will get hot. Let's be honest. It will happen. And that's the exciting part. You add that into the mix. You bring in Dalton Varsho, who would easily just slide in past Miles Straw, and there's another dangerous bat you have in your lineup. Santander, you're going to add that bat into your lineup. And if all these guys, they're not all going to stay as hot as they are right now. But with the possibility of having one or two of these guys stay hot for a prolonged stretch, you add these guys in, this team can be very dangerous. And this is where I wanted to go to a guy that, signed a contract in the offseason, boys. We were all kind of like, okay, I mean, good, I guess. Sure, fine.
I was all aboard. I don't know if we have a podcast to prove it, but I was all aboard.
Who really, let's be honest. You have no prospect catchers in the system. You're not giving Tyler Heineman the big contract.
No, but also, I think it was just objective. I think that regardless, if the Alejandro Kirk we got last year was the Alejandro Kirk that we were signing, I still think it was a no-brainer at the price tag that we signed. At the price tag that we signed him for, because you're not paying the catcher to be your six hitter, and that's just a fact. And when it comes to the defense side of things, people, visually it might not seem like he's an elite catcher. you're wrong. He's been an elite catcher basically his entire career outside of maybe year number 1.5. And that's what you paid for. So anything you get above him being an elite catcher was a bonus. And that's why I thought it was a no-brainer. And I actually give the front office a lot of credit for getting it done because, it's in all likelihood, they saw a pathway to Alejandro Kirk getting back to at least an all-star level form. This is obviously crazy. 325 from your catcher is just bonkers in June. So let's just get that out of the way. But yeah, I thought it was a no-brainer from the beginning.
It's a crazy thing for Rob. I want to jump in here.
Yeah.
If you take out the Phillies game, that was game 1 of that series where he went 0 for 3 with a run scored, and the 0 for 1 against Texas. I think that was probably when he came into pinch hit. Take out those 2 games, he has had a hit in every single game since May 21st against the Padres. That's like 3 weeks. That's ridiculous.
Checks out.
I mean, it absolutely does. He has multi-hits in 3 straight. He had 4 in the opener against St. Louis, 3 in game 2, and 2 yesterday.
Yeah.
Machine.
No, I was looking at the Baseball Savant page the other day, and I think that verifies that this is legit.
Right.
Obviously these numbers are great, but he's not bad bipping his way to this. I mean, obviously there's some luck because nobody hits 400 plus over an extended stretch without some sort of form of luck. We get that. However, yeah, he's a legit hitter, and then obviously we knew he was always in them, right? We always knew that this was that guy, and obviously in 2022 he represented the American League in the All-Star game as a starting catcher and won the Silver Slugger, and he came up as a bat first prospect. Remember, in his first year, his first full season, he was playing just about every day, but not a catcher. It's because you had to get his bat in the lineup. He was DH while Danny Jansen and Reese McGuire were splitting up the platoon behind the plate. Funny how that's turned out, but. Yeah, man, it just looks like he's just go up there all the time in a clutch situation, coming through. The home run that he hit off Michaelis, I believe. I think he was still looking at that.
I think so.
Yeah.
Wait, James, what did you say?
Wait, was that the one in the right center? I can't remember. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. Right center off into the bullpen, and then the night before, I got a little help from the center fielder, but it went up over dead center in St. Louis. Like, that's not an easy ballpark to be hitting the ball to those sides of the field, dead center and then right center. I mean, the fact that he hit both those out there, and Kirk's obviously he's not a home run hitter. He's not a guy who, if you get double digits, maybe 15, you're happy. But the fact that he was able to do that in those ballparks against pretty good pitching, let's be honest, the Cardinals are a pretty good team. I think it's legit. I think you look at his numbers; they are basically on par to where he was in 2022, which was starting to look like an outlier year because the last 2 years it was nowhere near that. But all of a sudden, Alejandro Kirk has put all the phases of the game together. And he's now been continuing to be one of the best defensive catchers in baseball, like he has been. And this time, he's added the power and the hitting tools and all that stuff that we saw early on in his career. And he's put that together. And in the end, you have a legitimate all-star. He's going to be in the all-star game in Atlanta. Probably not going to start because Cal Raleigh's having the greatest catching season ever.
Yep.
But if it not for an outlier year from a catcher, he'd be starting the all-star game again. And yeah, I mean, I criticize Ross Atkins and Shapiro all the time, but this might look like a Mona Lisa, folks. This might look like an absolute masterpiece of a contract.
Absolutely. And Jimmy, right on cue, brother. Yeah, if you're listening to it and not seeing this, Jimmy just slapped down our graphic saying best catcher in the AL East. And there's no debating it.
Nope.
There's absolutely no debating it. Sure, big dumper over there in Seattle. I actually don't feel bad that he tortures us all the time now because he's doing stuff like this. I'm like, okay, that's fine. He's doing it to everybody now. Yeah. So it's fine.
Here's the thing. We have the list, right? We have the list of the Mount Crushmore Blue Jays killers. So we got Ryan Mountcastle. We got Carlos Santana. Who's the other guy? There's some other guy that, I don't know, kills the Jays. Cal Raleigh's
Lewis is one, I would say.
I guess Royce Lewis, yeah. We put Cal Raleigh in that. We put Cal Raleigh in that category, but I think we got to take Cal Raleigh out. I think Cal Raleigh is just a good player, period. Like at this point, he's not the Blue Jays killer anymore.
But let's get back to the point. Rob, you mentioned it. He's one of the best defensive catchers in baseball. We all know about his framing, and everyone loves to get. We heard about that all offseason. He's great.
By the way, here's also when I was looking at Baseball Savant, he has moved up to the second percentile in sprint speed. No longer the first. He's no longer dead last. I don't know who's dead last, but he is proving that part of his game as well.
He is speed. But not only that, like you mentioned, one of the best defense catchers in baseball, and now he's just hitting rocket line. But this was the whole thing when he came up, right? What did we always hear? Well, he's line drives everywhere, and that's what you're seeing. And you mentioned Rob, the power tool. He's got 5 homers. You know how many he had last year in 103 games? 5. He's already tied that total, and he ain't stopping. The big fella's chugging, and it is so fun, literally and figuratively, and it's fun to watch, boys.
We should have. The second you saw a second percentile, we should have found out who's worse. How that guy, as soon as he finds that out, has to go to the gym, right? Yeah, he's going to do sprints for the next 3 weeks.
Here's my prediction. I don't think it's a guy who's actually slower. I think it's probably some guy who hits a lot of ground balls and he just jogs them out, and that affects his
Marky Maldonado.
It might be Maldonado.
It might be him. It might be him. Yeah. But guys, I think we left some loose ends in our last topic. I want to ask you guys straight up the question. I mean, give your answer the way we go. Do we actually think that this team is good? And by good, you can take that all the different places you want. You know, are they a good playoff team? Are they a good, legitimate contender? Could they go to the ALCS? Could they go to the World Series? Like, where are you guys at with the Blue Jays overall? Like, how good are they in your opinion?
I think they're legit. And there's a few boxes that I like to tick. One is obviously who you're doing it against. That's obviously the big one that everyone looks at. You're just beating up tomato cans, and then record looks good. It's you're beating up the Athletics a bunch. No. Well, that's not the case. Like Rob mentioned, you beat St. Louis, you beat Philly. Sorry, you swept St. Louis. You beat the Phillies. You won 2 or 3 against Minnesota Twins, and without Bowden, you could have swept that series. In fact, you had the lead twice, I believe, in that game, and you blew it both times because Bowden stinks. But anyways, you won a series against the Texas Rangers. Take that for what it is. So fine. Okay. Well, we've talked about it how many times in this pod. You get punched in the mouth. What happens next? Do we have, then the ball game is over? Like, is it officially done? Is it cooked? No.
Oh, wow. That was abrupt.
That's out of character too. Okay.
And
I'll steer you in that direction. While Pricey was in the middle of his take, I'll ask you the same question. How good do you think this Jays team is? Oh, wait a minute. No,
he's back.
Pricey's back.
Internet connection kicked out. What kind of nonsense was that?
That came back pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I said retry, and it's like, here we go. So,
okay.
I don't even know where the hell I was. That flustered me too much.
That's fine. I was about to, in summary, James thinks that they're legit, and it's because of all the things they're currently checking off. And I think at the top of that list is not giving up, and the fact that you're doing it with your $500 million player playing like a $500 million player. And here's the thing, and I said to Jimmy before this that this podcast would be 95% positive, probably for the first time in Blue Jay Center Sick Podcast Network history. But here comes the 5%.
Wow, here we go.
I think they're fun. I have confidence in this team winning 85 games, which I didn't think that they had in them prior to the season. That's about as much confidence as I have currently. And it's because of the pitching staff, which ironically enough, despite it being very serviceable and still a very good bright spot on the Jays season so far to where we are today, being 8 games above 500. I said going into the year that I didn't trust it at all, bullpen and starting rotation. And while the bullpen overall has been great, maybe our best piece outside of now our offense, but Jeff Hoffman, I had concerns about coming in because obviously he failed 2 physicals. And if your closer is your number one sore spot in your bullpen, that's a big issue. Mm-hmm. And the rotation, like I said, was going to be an issue. And it'd be different if we still had the 3 guys. If we still had Chris Bassett, Jose Barrios, and Kevin Gausman that we could rely on every 5 days. And you have no problem starting them in Game 1, Game 2, and Game 3 in the postseason. But I'm going to be honest with you. I have an issue starting Jose Barrios and Chris Bassett in games 1 or 2 or 3 in the postseason right now, as of this current moment. And we don't have a 4th starter, and we don't have a 5th starter, as we've already mentioned, and as everybody knows who's watching the Jays right now. So, yes, do I think this offense and this staff can get us to 85 wins in a postseason berth? Yes. So that team is good. To be in that scenario, you are good. I am not further than that as of right now, but This isn't an 85 win team that I think is boring and we're going to fall ass backwards into 85 wins. This is an 85 win team that I think is worth watching every day except for on Bowden Francis days. So,
Yeah.
that's a big improvement. I know I bursted a bit of a bubble, but like that's me trying to blow it back up.
Fair.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely fair. I'm kind of in the same place you are, if I'm being honest with you. I think that ultimately the lack of a legitimate number one is, to me, the ultimate overarching concern, because I do think that the Bowden Francis thing will be settled out. Bowden Francis is going to get shelled this weekend. We all know it's going to happen, and that's going to be his last start for a while. And Scherzer's probably going to come back, or you're probably going to run the Turnbull thing. It looked okay yesterday, and you could always. If Adam Macko pitches well, he might get a shot. Alec Manoah's going to be due up at some point, and obviously the trade deadline's coming up. So I do think that the avenue for patching up that hole in the back end of your rotation will be fixed eventually. It's still, I think, that front end, that upside of the rotation that just doesn't exist right now. Let's be honest. I think that's where the balloon gets a little deflated. But ultimately, here is what I will say is that the two best teams that we've seen in this, I don't want to say iteration, but this generation of Blue Jays baseball, obviously 2015, 2021, they're the two teams that stand out as the two best teams. But here's the thing about both those teams, and obviously like we're familiar with both of them. Both those teams were kind of murky, above 500, slightly at the trade deadline.
Yes.
And it was in the second half where they sort of exploded and graduated into a legitimate contender. So for those fans out there, you still want to hold out a little bit of hope. Now, obviously, a big difference between those teams and this team is that this team just doesn't have the prospect capital that those teams had to go out there and make a legitimate move and get a legitimate number one or like an all-star caliber starter like they did both those years, really. So I think that is a fair critique. But I will say that look at the neighborhood. Look at the AL.
Right.
I mean, the Blue Jays have the third best record in the AL, and the team that's currently the team that's on not on their tail, but the one right outside of the playoffs is a Guardians team that's a few games over 500 that has a really bad run differential. My point is that at this point, there's no debate that this Jays team should absolutely be pushing in to make the playoffs this year. There's no debate about that. We were talking, what will happen to the deadline? Will you be a soft buyer, a soft seller? It's done. You should absolutely try to maximize this year because I legitimately think that there's no world beater in the AL. I mean, obviously, even the Tigers and the Yankees. I mean, the Blue Jays played the Tigers a couple of weeks ago. It's a 3-game series, and that last game, it could have gone either way. The Blue Jays could have won 2 out of 3 against Detroit, the best team in the AL. The Yankees, same thing, too. Like, they played them tough earlier in the year. They lost that series as well. And obviously, we'll see the Yankees when they come in. But, I think that they're good enough where, at the very least, you should be doing everything possible to augment this roster at the deadline and make a legitimate push this year. This year is a year where they can legitimately go to the playoffs and make some noise.
And here's the thing. I got a perfect segue for this. And I will admit, my own omission in doing these stats, I should have also grabbed the 2021 stats just so we know, but I didn't, and that's on me. But what I did do is I compared this 2025 team to the 2015 team. And the other thing about the 2021 team is they had two MVP candidates, so like in all likelihood these numbers weren't going to match up. And a Cy Young. So like in all likelihood it wasn't going to match up anyway. So just take that for what you will. 2015, we went 93 and 69. Currently, we're on a 91 win pace. This Blue Jays team right now. Now, this is going to be a gap in terms of the offensive numbers, and I wanted to just focus on the offense because that's what people care about. The 2015 team scored 891 runs. We're on pace for 705. It's a large difference, I understand. They also hit 200.
But also, caveat, the environment in baseball is way less offensive than it was 10 years ago.
Correct.
By a lot.
Yeah.
By a lot.
Correct.
So it's important to make that distinction.
That's important because it'll get better as I go. 232 home runs in 2015. We're on pace for 167. Yeah. In 2015 they batted 269, 340 OBP, and a 797 OPS. This year we are at 256, a 326 OBP, and a 728 OPS. 2015 115 OPS plus. This year 103 OPS plus.
Sorry, Cole. What was the OPS again for 2015?
790
as a team.
Yeah, almost 800. Yeah, that's
bonkers, man.
That's a joke. And it was only
God damn it, Ryan Goins, you cost us a World Series dropping that ball.
Yeah, and as Rob pointed out, the offensive environment was significantly different because that 800 OPS only got you a 115 OPS plus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So those numbers are large. So basically, if you were to look at those two things, you'd be like, okay, those two teams are comparable, and that's fair. Yeah. But since May, which is where this team has actually gotten into the iteration that it is currently, These are our numbers. We're on pace for 819 runs. We're on pace for 217 home runs. And we're on pace to bat 274 with a 334 OBP and a 782 OPS since May. That's no small sample. So for the people that, are just waiting to get a team like that back into their television screens, it's here. Turn on the television screen. You got one. And it doesn't involve Vladimir Guerrero Jr. yet, your $500 million player who is eventually going to show up. And regarding the rotation options, because I think that this is where this conversation is going, I got to bring up a name, and it just happened, I think, today or yesterday. Aaron Savali got moved to the pen in Milwaukee, and he immediately requested a trade. Aaron Savali's 30 years old, is a free agent at the end of the year, is getting paid $8 million this year, has a career ERA of 4, has a career ERA plus of 103, and 8.1 Ks per 9.
Yeah.
Get that guy in your dugout yesterday.
Yeah.
Because he's probably cheap.
He won't cost you much.
No.
I mean, he's requested the damn trade. Like, let's be honest, he's having an awful year. He's requested a trade. They're not going to ask even probably for a top 30 guy. Really, why would you give away a top 30 prospect at that point? You won't. So yeah, I'm definitely down for that because I don't want to see Bowden anymore. So let's be honest and let's talk about that, shall we?
You probably give him Bowden.
Before we do, I do want to point two things to, because I think Professor made a good point there with the 2015 comparing it. I will offer some pushback. You saying that you were watching a team this team, as great as it's been, it's not a 2015 team. And here's the thing, to put into perspective, the 2015 team was the best team in baseball. They didn't win the World Series because that's how baseball works. But the best team not only doesn't always win, they rarely win because it's just that's how much of a crapshoot it was back then, at least. Yeah. That team was, and I mean, you call me rosy colored glasses. I think that team was better than the Royals team they lost to. That team was better than the Mets team they would have had to play in the World Series. That team was the best team in baseball. This team, it doesn't have that quite a ceiling. But I think to me the important thing is that
I got some pushback on that. And while I agree with you that this team is not in all likelihood going to end up like the 2015 team, this team has 7 starters in that lineup every day with an OPS plus above 100. That 2015 team had 6. Yeah. Here's the other thing. That Josh Donaldson year, that MVP year, he won the MVP that year. Vladdy's better than that. Vladdy can have a better year than that Josh Donaldson year.
I can't get behind that. If we're looking at just OPS plus, I can't.
Well, no, we're looking at everything.
Vladdy can have that type of year, but here's the thing about Vladdy. I didn't want to reference it because I didn't want to make it a Vladdy thing, but Vladdy sees that he's having this year is exactly why I was fine waiting until the offseason. I don't want to go relitigate that.
Oh, yeah.
But my point is that this is not a surprise in my opinion. I mean, obviously he's still doing fine, and obviously you don't want to poo-poo a guy who has an OPS plus in the 130s and is still leading your team. I mean, up there with WAR, and your team's doing great. But ultimately, am I shocked that Vladdy's got 8 home runs and a OPS 40 with 800 in June? No, I'm not, and that's why I was the one who said, let's play this out, because the idea that this guy's going to have another elite MVP caliber year, I mean, I wasn't convicted in it. And ultimately, I think that's ultimately the problem, is that you just don't have that upside. And obviously, Vladdy could be that guy. And James, you said earlier that last year you didn't win the games, didn't really matter. Don't completely agree with that, because yes, you're right that the games didn't matter, but the Vladdy season last year was the reason why he got, let's just say, a contentious contract, right? So it did matter to a degree. But ultimately, I think that's the issue. You just don't have that high upside. You have a guy who, in theory, can be a high-end MVP candidate, but I mean, you also could get this. And I think Vladdy will be better than this. I think he will break out because the process has been good. But no, I think that both in the rotation and in the lineup, you just don't have that legitimate MVP upside.
Well, let's be honest, though. For this team to go anywhere, regardless of all the great stories, he's got to be better. There's no other way of looking at it. He has to be better for this team.
The thing. I think you have enough depth where you can sort of sustain him being just good.
For a stretch.
To get there.
Stretch is fine.
To get there. You're not going to win. You're not going to win a playoff game yet.
No.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
No, you're not. I mean,
I'm with you there.
So he needs to figure it out. I don't know if that off day, a couple days ago, I said scheduled off day. It might have been more of let him hit the reset button kind of off day. I don't know. We'll never know that.
Because Vladdy doesn't get scheduled off days.
No, he doesn't.
Weird.
That's the point. So It definitely was weird, and they won the ball game. So we'll take it and move on, I guess.
And here's the thing. I do think it's coming. I do think the process has been good, like it always has been, and I do think that just like last year, I think we'll see something similar. Maybe it's not to the degree where he finishes with a 950 OPS and he's the top 5 hitter, but I do think we're gonna see a legitimate Vladdy tear at some point. And like my whole point is that I'm not surprised that it's not happened to this point.
No,
but I do think it will happen if I were to predict.
No, it's kind of what he does. He kind of has these slow starts, as a lot of these Blue Jays do, apparently. But they get hot, and hopefully, I'm really hoping for that Vladdy stretch soon because this weekend would be perfect. You play the Phillies, you face some really good pitchers.
Yeah, you got all of them, man. You got all of them. You got Ranger Suarez, Christopher Sanchez again, and Zach Wheeler, the guy that you avoided last time.
And by the way, Sanchez is going up against Bowden Francis.
Let's talk about the rotation because
that's where I was going to go with it.
Yes.
That's where I was going to go with it. And a lot of question marks surrounding Bowden Francis if he was going to start the game. We got to see Spencer Turnbull yesterday for a couple innings. Didn't go great. The first pitch rips a double, and we're like, oh boy, this is not a good start. Ends up going 2 scoreless innings. Did a fine job. But Bowden Francis is unplayable. Like we talked about it earlier on in the year. Is he the new Davis Schneider?
For sure.
Yeah. Is he the new Davis Schneider at the time? And Davis Schneider has had a couple good games here and there. So we're like, oh, maybe hold on. But regardless, Bowden Francis has not been good enough. You guys were asking in the chat if he has options. I think he has options.
He does. He does.
So I don't see a reason to keep him on the roster. Just the get right game. He'll get there. The optics. No, it's all bad. It's all bad. When you doesn't he lead the league in home runs allowed, or it feels like it feels like he's averaging. There you go. He's giving up a bunch of homers. He's hard contact all over the place. It's no good. No one's chasing his stuff anymore. The 92 mile an hour fastball ain't catching people off guard anymore, and they're just tattooing it like it's BP.
Here's my takeaway. Your question as to why he's not been optioned yet. I actually understand why he hasn't been optioned yet, and the reason why is because no one is ready to take that spot right now, right? Obviously, Max Scherzer is coming up. If he has a good start tomorrow in Buffalo and maybe another good one, he'll be back up. Spencer Turnbull. The only reason why he got called up is because of his 35-day stipulation in his contract, where it was. I think the stipulation was after he got signed, he had 35 days before he had to get activated, or else they would have had to DFA him. So that's the only reason he was up. His velocity is still down. Had it not been for that stipulation, he would have still been rehabbing right now. So he's not quite ready yet. And then obviously Alek Manoah is a while away. Adamako is a while away. I understand why he's still in the rotation today. What I don't understand is why he's starting on Saturday. Because here's the thing. Yes, you're facing a Philadelphia Phillies lineup who absolutely made him look uncompetitive the last time we faced him. The game was over in the first 5 minutes because of just how they were teeing off on him. But you had an off day today. You have an off day Monday. You can have your cake and eat it too. You can skip Bowden Francis' start, this turn through the rotation, have everybody pitch, have them get their regular 1-day rest as of the off day, benefit from the off day, and then go next cycle normal. I don't know why Bowden Francis is starting, honestly. Like, all you're doing is giving a guy multiple days of rest instead of 1 day off. You know what I mean? I just don't see the marginal benefit. And also, here's the thing. I just kind of feel bad for Bowden, too. I mean, the guy's obviously not in a good space right now.
He's overmatched.
Yeah. I mean, I bet you if you gave Bowden Francis the truth serum, he would tell you, like, maybe if I was manager calling the shots, I probably would set me down, too, with the way I've been pitching lately. I mean, there's no justifying how he's looked for the larger part of the season. But you could have avoided this. And now, to me, all of a sudden, I mean, obviously the vibes are good and all that. But to me, it really does feel like you have 2 games this weekend because Saturday's a punt game. It's a loss. It's a loss right from the start. I hate to say that because it's baseball and you just never really know. But I can't fathom a scenario where that goes well. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts? I think it's just an illogical decision, really.
I'm with you. Especially you have an off day Monday as well. So you could really massage this part of the schedule, knowing that, fingers crossed, obviously, that Max Scherzer is right on the cusp, and you can continue to try and build Spencer Turnbull up and maybe make a thing out of that. Because at this point, I'd rather watch him pitch at 91. He's still ramping up the velo than watch Bowden Francis give up meatballs. I mean, he's had multiple homers in back-to-back games. You mentioned that game against the Phillies where it was over in 5 minutes. First batter of the game, walked on 4 pitches, 2-run shot, solo shot. The next 2 batters. It's like, You just can't
Ball
start.
game is over.
Well, yeah. I mean, regardless, you just knew it was going to be over because you knew it was on the mound on the other side, and you knew how the rest of the game was going to go. And in fact, the rest of that inning was pathetic. He couldn't get an out. It was hard contact everywhere. And it was no fun to watch. And I feel bad for the people who paid to watch that. I mean, you get to watch the Phillies, clean your clock. But
that was the reason why I didn't go to that game. I was planning on going to that game because the vibes were going well. We just swept the Athletics. I think it was that series. And it's like, let me go down to the ball game. Oh, Bowden Francis against, at that time it was Zach Wheeler. Yeah, nope, no thank you. Yeah. And then even when he got pulled, it's like, oh, Bowden Francis against anybody? No, it doesn't matter. Still not going to that one.
Yeah. So, and I said this to Rob in the chat afterwards. I'm going to give you guys the logic behind why Bowden Francis is going to start on Saturday. Although I agree, I wouldn't start him on Saturday. Because the rotation is literally the oldest in baseball, and all they want to do is have a 6-man rotation. Like if you could ask every person in that front office, would you rather have 4 good pitchers or a 6-man rotation with the last 3 being, just serviceable? They would say they want a 6-man rotation. They would say that they do want to have the.
Why don't they get good starters then?
yeah, exactly. They can't. They have no choice. But that's why Bowden Francis is starting. Because if he has an option left, and we had another option to replace him with somebody, he wouldn't start on Saturday. He would have already been sent down. Probably.
It's not even about being sent down. Like you can just skip his start and have the rotation go regularly.
I know,
and still give the guys the rest.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. They think that every day off is a benefit to the starters that they can rely on.
Extra day.
And that's why they're gonna run Bowden Francis out there. But I do agree. You're in the fucking big leagues. This is what you got to deal with. If you signed up to pitch for us every 5 days this year, then you signed up to pitch for us every 5 days this year. That is as simple as that. If you're going to be our 1, 2, and 3, then I have to rely on you like you're going to be a 1, 2, 3. I completely agree.
Yeah, what's weird is, we always hear in baseball, you try to win the game that day, right? You try and focus on that game that day, so you do everything you can to win. You're not trying to do that. No. If you're just trying to massage the Bowden Francis situation, keep everybody in line, make sure the other guys get their extra day of rest. No, you're punting on a game. You're telling your fans, hey, we're going to lose this game, or we're going to do everything in our power to lose this game so that the other 4 guys get their proper rest so we may win the other 4. Yeah. I mean, it's not a great way of looking at it there.
No. But I also think there might be some logic in the fact that, and Rob alluded to it earlier, that this is his last start.
Oh, it has to be.
If it's his last start, I also think that's how they're looking at it. Whatever, we'll send him out there. He'll get teed off. Whatever, we'll punt that one. But it's not going to happen. But it's not going to happen again. So we'll send him out for one more.
Makes you use your option that Eric Lauer has actually been quite good for this team. Yeah.
I said that. Yeah. I said these guys exist. These guys exist. We can find somebody to get through 4 innings of a baseball game and be competent. I know Bowden Francis can't do it, but there's lots of guys who can do it.
Yeah.
Using about Eric Lauer, he's, and no hyperbole, he's saved their season. Because had he been just another dumpster fire wrecking ball like Bowden Francis light, I mean, you can kind of survive with
all those
black hole. Yeah, they're 9-4 in the bullpen games. They have sustained the Max Scherzer injury. No problem, really. I mean, if Max Scherzer was starting all these games,
and he was not
9-4.
Exactly.
They're probably not 9-4 in these games. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not even that. Like the bullpen and the depth and all that has actually been okay. It's really just the Bowden Francis spot that's just been a massive black hole. And ultimately, I don't think it's a long-term concern because I do think it will be filled at some point. The options who are going to fill his role are on the surface are all question marks. It's a 41-year-old Max Scherzer. It's a Spencer Turnbull that clearly isn't all ramped up and ready to pitch in the big leagues as of right now. It's a bunch of rookies like Adam Macko who you have no idea what you're going to get. It's a trade deadline acquisition who's still months away. It's Alek Manoah in August coming off Tommy John, even before the Tommy John was kind of questionable. So it's not a lot of certainty, but I think at the very least, with all those options, at least one of them's got to be, adjacent to major league caliber at the back end, right?
Right.
Yeah, and you mentioned Alek Manoah. Just wanted to put this out there that he posted on his Instagram a day ago that he had his first post-surgery live AB with Dalton Varsho at the plate. So positive signs moving forward. Good stuff for him. Hopefully he's back on the field at some point soon, because for the love of God, take Bowden's spot, please, and thank you. Better not be Bowden's spot at that point in time to begin with.
Where else are you going to go to get your Instagram updates than Blue Jays Center podcast on the Sick Podcast Network?
Bingo. Bingo. That's what we're here for, fellas. We're here to keep people informed on what's happening Toronto Blue Jays wise. And that's why we're going to hit up the farm, because Rob talks about options and Adam Macko and guys like that. Well, let's touch on a bunch of pitching prospects, because the Jays farm system's kind of loaded with them. Let's see. Jimmy, what do you got for me? All right, fellas. The farm, as I mentioned, is filled with pitching prospects, which feels weird, because they haven't really developed a pitching prospect other than Alek Manoah in this whole regime of Ross and Mark. But we all know where it starts, at the top, with Trey Savage, who is just a freak of nature. Like, he shows up in Dunedin, dominates. We're like, okay, great stuff. Gets the call to Vancouver. All right, proceeds to go there and has a $1.56 ERA. Again, it's only 17 innings of work, but that's all he needs to have 33 punch outs. And 5 hits allowed in those innings. He just dominated there, and just recently got the call to Double-A New Hampshire already. Hasn't made a start yet, but he is ready to go, and it is exciting. The Jays have some top-notch pitching prospect. I'm not going to say the H word. That is, there we go. I think we can all know, okay, when you're not hurt, you're okay. Anyways, I butchered it completely. Rob was confused. Anyways, but regardless of that, he's been outstanding. Something to keep an eye on. Again, in Vancouver, he had a batting average against of 0.86, a whip of 0.92. Like, it's just not fair. They gave him the call up, but like, all right, you've already dominated there. Thank you. Move on. And another guy, Cal Steven, their second round pick last year, he's sitting there with a 2.25 ERA in Vancouver, 20 innings, 25 punch outs, a whip of 1.1. His last start, he went 6 shutout innings and had 9 punch outs. I mean, you're sitting here with guys with arms that is just ridiculous. And I'm going to keep going here because Ricky Tiedemann, still not back. Jake Bloss, cooked for the season. But Landon Marutis, who didn't pitch at all last year, he's back to pitching. He's back with Dunedin. Again, young guy, right? Real young guy, real raw. Kenry Rojas, my guy from last year who dominated. He's only like 21 in Vancouver. He's back to pitching. That's great signs there. Brandon freaking Barriera. We've talked about him ad nauseum in the past. Just injury problem after injury problem in his career. He has been in the Jays organization since 2022. He's 21 now. He's been in the org for 3 years. He's had a total of 9 starts in 23 innings. He's back on the field through his first inning on June 6th. So that's great to see. Warren Watts-Brown got the call to Double-A New Hampshire. I mean, he's starting to dominate. And Macko back with the Bisons. So all of those guys that I just mentioned are all in your top 15. I mean, and you talk about, Rob, we talked about it. I don't know who to mention it earlier on in the show about trade assets at the deadline, stuff like that. You know what other teams love? Is young
prospects. Yep. And I say get rid of all of them, because the Jays can't develop a pitching prospect, because by the time they get to AAA and they're on the brink of scratching our rotation, Tommy John, shoulder surgery.
Yep.
So I'm send them all packing. I don't want any of them here in July if we have a chance at buying and being a heavy buyer, and there's lots of options available to make this team today significantly better. Because
I actually disagree. And like and this is like not par for the course for me, because I've always been on your train. I've always been on the trade prospects train. I've been get the guarantee. But I think, to me, and like maybe it is, I've been sort of the front office the last couple of years has sort of changed my opinion on this, but we're seeing what's going on this year when you're not developing pitching prospects within the pipeline. And that's, yes, you can go out there and you can outsource, you can sign guys to contracts, and to the Jays' credit, they've done a good job of it, right? Like Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassett, Jose Barrios, Yusei Kikuchi last year, all guys that pitched very well for them and gave a lot of value. But we're seeing what happens now at the end of these contracts, and that's, you're getting good production, but ultimately you just don't have that high upside. You don't have that high upside of an ace. And ultimately, yes, I understand your opinion of going out there and and trading guys and making the team better, but I think that there is legitimate value in being able to have a legitimate cost-controlled, high-level stud pitcher. I mean, Alec Manoah, that's the most disappointing part of it was that could you imagine getting Cy Young caliber production like Alec Manoah showed his first couple of years at basically nothing? I mean, that would have been so valuable for this team, and they just haven't had that the last couple of years. And now you're seeing guys who are giving them good value, but ultimately for the dollar figure, it's decent value, but it's not surplus value. And ultimately, that's what's going to help you win big. It's a surplus value, and it's just really unfortunate what's happened to Alec Manoah, to Ricky Tiedemann, even before Nate Pearson. And maybe who knows? Maybe that's your point, is that all this keeps happening. Maybe that's just a problem with them. So maybe you want to get ahead of the curve. I get
exactly that. That's kind of my point. It's been over half a decade now of every promising pitching prospect that we've had who either made it to the majors or just was on the brink of getting the majors has gotten injured and has not been able to get back to the level that we once saw them at since. That's been over half a decade now. And like, I don't know whether that's a Bison's problem. I don't know whether that's a training staff problem, because the major league team has no problem keeping their guys healthy, and those guys are 35 years old, except for obviously Max Scherzer, but he was here for like a cup of coffee. So my point is the major league team doesn't seem to have an issue keeping pitchers healthy, but it seems like the Buffalo Bisons specifically, and I don't want to call them out. Maybe it's just, this is the generation that we're in right now, because everybody who's a stud pitcher has to go to Tommy John surgery and gets injured all the time. And
look at Jackson Joe, literally the other day.
I know. And I get that. And I also get Rob's point. You look at the Houston Astros. The whole reason why the Houston Astros were able to have their dynasty is because they had a rotation full of cost-controlled starters that could win Game 1 and Game 2 and Game 3 of any postseason.
Even right
series.
now, Hunter Brown's a Cy Young candidate.
Yeah,
he's a cost-controlled young guy that they got drafted, right?
Yeah.
So
it's more just I don't trust the Jays process.
I just want one guy. I just want one legitimate cost-controlled stud that here you go. You're going to be a legitimate Cy Young candidate, a legitimate all-star pitcher, and you're going to be playing for free for the next half decade.
All right,
Could you
Rob,
imagine one of those guys with a team with a $300 million payroll? Like, what kind of difference that would make?
All right,
what kind
Rob,
of surplus value you could get?
So you get to pick one then, and we send the rest of them packing.
Oh, it's Trey Savage. Savage.
Yes.
That's not a question. He's obviously the number one asset in this organization right now. He's the closest prospect in the org that is close to the major leagues of guys that legitimately have a chance to be an all-star, right?
Yeah. He's also
Sorry, go ahead.
He's also the closest thing, I think, since Paul Skeens.
Yeah, no,
from a trajectory standpoint and the speed at which he's being promoted and what he's doing in the minors, this is what Paul Skeens did last year.
Yeah. And ultimately, maybe this is my point all along. Maybe it took us a while to get here, but ultimately, I don't want to trade Trey Savage. I don't care what the trade package is. Obviously, no one is untradeable. No one should be untradeable. I understand that, but I'd really like to hold on to him. I'd really like the idea of having a legitimate stud who can contribute next year. Like, if all goes well, he'll be in the majors next year. That can contribute for surplus value. So to me, it would have to really be a really nice package for me to include him in a deal.
People are saying there's an above 0% chance he's in the majors in September.
Caleb Joseph brought it up on the broadcast, and obviously, Caleb Joseph, he's a former ex-player out there on the broadcast. I'm not sure how closely his sources are to the pipeline and the org and just their plans on Trey Savage, but the fact that he put it out there, I mean.
Well, so did Keegan. Keegan put it out there. Keegan.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, he said in all likelihood it's 0%, but he's like, I can no longer say that it's 0%.
Fair enough.
He's saying there's an above 0% chance it happens in September.
Yeah, that'd be fun, boys. God, wouldn't that ever?
So fun. You get a guy come up here putting up 11 Ks per 9, and that's me assuming he regresses.
He could be Jackson Joe. He could be Jackson Joe for the Tigers last year. He came up and ended up being like a bullpen piece for them.
That would be so fun. That'd be so fun. Two guys. I guess technically three guys that I want to touch on before we wrap this puppy up. Two guys. Well, one guy that no one's talking about except for shout out Damon on Twitter. Atkins to Alcatraz. Absolutely.
That's not his name anymore. He changed it.
He changed it?
He changed it, yeah, because he wants to have like a professional gimmick or something like that. I don't know.
What is it now?
Something like that. But yeah, I think it's just his name.
It's Damon. That's what I said.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying it's no longer Atkins to Alcatraz.
I know, but I said that. I know,
yes,
but
the formerly known Atkins to Alcatraz.
Yeah, of course.
Gotcha.
Had to give the guy a shout out because he's been all over these two guys. Gage Stanifer. Never ever heard of them, fellas? Ever? No, of course not. He was a 19th round pick out of high school by the Blue Jays in 2019 or 2022. He's a 21-year-old kid in Vancouver, and the amount of talk is a lot. They're talking a lot about that and Cal Steven kind of together. He hasn't started a game for them. They're kind of piggybacking him and Cal Steven. Let's just say the strikeout numbers are pretty ridiculous. I mean, in Vancouver, he's only 21. He's hitting a 2.40 ERA in 15 innings, got 26 strikeouts. In his 26 innings in Dunedin before getting the call up, 26 innings, 38 punch-outs. The kid's got nasty stuff at 21 years old, and his career in the minor leagues, 143 innings pitched, 175 strikeouts. I know it's the minor leagues, but he's 21 years old, and boy, he's starting to dominate down there. And the other guy, it's very raw, and boy, it's raw, and there's not much data on him. But again, Damon again, all horned up for this guy, Johnny King. The young guy was just drafted by the Blue Jays in 2024 in the 3rd round. He's only 18, and he's only pitched 5 games in the minor leagues. But the stuff, it looks ridiculous. 15 innings. He's got 27 strikeouts. Ridiculous. Nasty stuff. And I wanted to bring up those two guys because we haven't talked about them before, and they're just making headway in the organization. Do not be surprised when it kind of like the mid-season, I guess, adjustments to the top 30 prospect list that both guys, you'll probably see Johnny King move up, and Standifer will probably make the top 30 at some point. So that'll be exciting to see. And the last guy, the one guy with a bat in his hand, Arjun Namala, who has actually struggled recently, but did homer yesterday, his 10th homer of the season. He's the second teenager with double-digit homers in high A ball. So that's a positive thing for him.
Second teenager ever?
No, like this season.
Oh, this season. I was like,
yeah.
what?
No, not ever. No. Pretty sure
Just
Vlad
like
probably did that, didn't he? Like
easily. Just like Trey Savage is the number 1 guy I wouldn't trade. I think Arjun Namala is number 2. I think that would be like I think for either of those guys to get traded, it has to be a legit package, like a legitimate, controllable all-star guy who's gonna be out there and like no concerning underlying stats. It has to be like a legitimate piece that you can put in there in the middle of a lineup or the top of a rotation for me to trade either of those guys.
Here's a question, Rob. Would you trade Arjun Namala for a Dalton Varsho?
For a Dalton Varsho. So for Bretton Doyle, because I think he's the closest thing to Dalton.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, fair.
Ooh, that's tough. I mean, I probably would, yeah. I mean, a legitimate 5-win player, yeah. I probably would. Cost-controlled 5-win player, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There you go. There you go, boys.
No, that's my point. It has to be a legitimate, cost-controlled guy who projects to be a 5-win player moving forward. Yes, that's the archetype.
Would you? Okay, we talked about. Now it's kind of maybe a stupid question, but you may have to add something more on the J side. You probably would actually have to add more things on the J side of it. But you talk about Trey Savage, kind of like the one guy that you really don't want to touch. Paul Skeens.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it would have to be plus, right? You have to add some more to it. Obviously, when
give him all 30. Give him all 30.
There we go.
All 30, top 30 prospect. Give it all.
Love to see it. Patch and all. Love to see it, boys. Well, you know what? We're going to wrap that puppy up here unless you guys have anything else you want to discuss. But we think we hit all the good topics. We were positive for 3/4 of the live, which is probably a record for us, other than talking about Houghton Francis, which we're hoping ends soon. So maybe the full-on 100% positive pod next time. We will see. But Rob, Cole, it was a blast as always, boys. And Jimmy, appreciate you, pal, behind the scenes. And for everybody listening, watching, thank you so much. And as always, go Jays.
Go Jays.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.